I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network, and this is a breaking news alert. Two Democratic Congress members from New York, Congressmember Richie Torres and Congressmember Dan Goldman, have filed a formal ethics complaint against the MAGA fraud traitor George Santos. And not only did they file this ethics complaint, they personally served George Santos. They went down the halls of one of the Capitol building offices and they gave George Santos the letter directly and gave a statement to the press. I'm going to show you that video of George Santos being served by Richie Torres and Dan Goldman in one moment. But first, the announcement today from Richie Torres. Breaking news: Dan Goldman and I are filing a formal complaint with the House Ethics Committee against George Santos for violating the Ethics in Government Act. Santos must be held accountable for defrauding both Congress and the public. And one thing to note about Congressmember Dan Goldman, who was just elected, he used to be a federal prosecutor. He was an assistant U.S. attorney under Preet Bharara, who was the United States attorney in the Southern District of New York. One fact about Dan Goldman as well that I'm sure you remember is Dan Goldman was the lead counsel in the first Trump impeachment. So lead counsel in the first Trump impeachment, and as a former federal prosecutor, prosecuted some of the biggest and most high-profile mafia cases in New York. So now, turning to the letter that was sent, let's pull up the ethics letter. It was sent to the Ethics Committee, which is now being run by MAGA Republicans who have gutted the Ethics Committee. So we'll see what ultimately the MAGA Republicans do here. And one of the ways they've gutted the Ethics Committee is by basically not allowing it to be bipartisan anymore and stopping former staffers who worked for Democrats from really getting on and working in a bipartisan fashion with the committee. But here's what the letter says. It says, "Dear Representatives Guest and Representative Wild on the Ethics Committee, we write to request an investigation of George Anthony DeVolder Santos, George Santos, who was recently elected representative in New York's 3rd Congressional District for violation of the Ethics in Government Act by failing to file timely, accurate, and complete financial disclosure reports as required by law. The act was designed to preserve and promote the integrity of public officials and institutions. Over the past several weeks, extensive public reporting, as well as Santos's own admissions, have shown that Mr. Santos misled voters in his district about his ethnicity, his religion, his education, and his employment and professional history, among other things. Mr. Santos's financial disclosure reports in 2020 and 2022 are sparse and perplexing. At a minimum, it is apparent that he did not file timely disclosure reports for his most recent campaign. Moreover, his public statements have contradicted some information included in the 2022 financial disclosure and confirmed that the 2022 financial disclosure failed to disclose other required information. Given the revelations about his biography, as well as the public information pertaining to his financial disclosures, Mr. Santos has failed to uphold the integrity expected of members of the House of Representatives. We therefore respectfully request that you investigate this matter to determine the extent of these violations and take appropriate action as soon as possible." Then, Congressmember Richie Torres and Congressmember Dan Goldman took this letter that they sent to the Ethics Committee, and they served a copy on George Santos directly. Let's pull up the cameras the moment earlier in the day where we had Goldman and Torres serve George Santos, the complete and utter MAGA fraud. Play the clip.
Congressman, doing this in person?
We are.
What's the value of doing this in person?
The process requires us to deliver it in person.
Why is it important to do?
I think when you violate House ethics, you should be held accountable.
Congressman, I want to ask you, GOP leadership has said this is something they want to handle internally. What makes you think that this is going to do anything or move the needle?
We haven't seen a single movement on the part of Republican leadership. They have not commented on this publicly. They have not condemned George Santos and all of his lies. They have adopted him as one of their own. And in fact, George Santos cast the deciding vote for Kevin McCarthy so that he could become Speaker of the House. So they have wrapped their arms around him. We've seen no indication that they have done anything to rebuke him or handle it internally. This is the first I'm even hearing of that. So we, Congressman Torres and I, feel it's incredibly important to make sure that the integrity of the House and the integrity of its members are put first and foremost.
No, and I think what Congressmember Dan Goldman said there is so completely apt. Like, the Republicans are doing utterly nothing right now, so someone has to act. The MAGA Republicans have embraced George Santos because he was a decisive vote for Kevin McCarthy. They are okay with frauds, but frankly, that shouldn't be shocking because MAGA Republicans in 2023, the current Republican Party, which has been overtaken by MAGA Republicans, that's who they are. They are George Santos. George Santos perfectly represents who they are. Now, here is George Santos the other day as he's being asked questions by the media. His new line is, he repeats, I need personal space. I need my personal space. And he also said, I did nothing unethical. Excuse me? You think you did nothing unethical? I mean, look, he could basically say, I did nothing criminal. He would still absolutely be lying because he's an utter and complete criminal who needs to be thrown behind bars based on the federal, state, and local prosecutions. But he doesn't go there. He goes, I did nothing unethical. Think about that. A MAGA Republican, they think that it is not unethical to lie about every aspect of your life, to lie about what's on your resume, to lie that your mom died in 9/11, that your mom survived 9/11, that your dad survived 9/11, that you had 4 employees who survived the Pulse nightclub shooting, lying that your last name is Zabrowski, lying that your grandparents survived the Holocaust. I mean, I could go on and on. Everything this guy said is a complete and utter lie, but he goes, it's not unethical. Here's the clip of Santos dodging the media and saying, I need space. I need my personal space. Are you kidding me? Play the clip.
You're accused of fabricating almost every single part of your life. Why did you deserve to represent you in New York?
Through the way.
Did you illegally?
Mr. Santos, there's some campaign finance concerns and questions about your finances.
Really?
Can you answer the
Can you guys
campaign
give me a
finance
little
concerns?
space, personal space, please?
A little personal space?
Why won't you answer our questions,
Congressman, you seem to be dodging
Don't the American
questions
people deserve
about
to
your
know some
finances
answers?
and about your background.
Congressman, what about those new accusations?
And here is Democratic Congressmember Pete Aguilar at a press conference saying, look, it is clear Kevin McCarthy owns George Santos. George Santos was the decisive vote for Kevin McCarthy. So now George Santos does whatever Kevin McCarthy says, and Kevin McCarthy's perfectly fine to have someone who's a perfect reflection of who the MAGA Republican Party is today. Here, play this clip of Democratic Congressmember Pete Aguilar at a press conference earlier in the day.
Kevin McCarthy owns George Santos. Lock, stock, and barrel. If George Santos wasn't seated, what would the math have been for Speaker McCarthy? He would have had to flip another vote or get 2 people to vote present. I mean, this is, he owns George Santos. That's the only reason why he was seated, is to give George Santos that ability to vote for Kevin McCarthy. So let's call this exactly what it is. There should be repercussions. The state and federal governments and the law enforcement agencies should look into it. The FEC should look into this. I know that there might be an ethics complaint that's filed here as well, but this is an incredibly serious issue from someone who clearly is divorced from reality and sanity. But this is at the feet of Kevin McCarthy, not just George Santos alone. Vice Chair Lew.
And this was an important one as well. This is Democratic Congress member Pat Ryan. Pat Ryan originally won the special election, and then he won again in the midterm election. And this is what he said in his tweet, and let me show you what this video he posted I think is important. He goes, George Santos has blatantly lied about his entire life and record. There is zero basis for entrusting him with access to highly classified information. That's why I'm demanding Speaker McCarthy safeguard our national security and block Santos's access until he is properly vetted. What we can't forget, folks, is that what Pat Ryan and what all members of Congress have to sign and certify and take an oath is an oath to handle classified records. Members of Congress have access to national secrets, information that can, if in the wrong hands, cause our troops to get killed, cause Americans to get killed, harm our national security. Let me play you this video because Pat Ryan said, I signed this, and as I signed my classified, my oath to maintain classified information this way, I reflected, how are we going to get George Santos? Why is McCarthy letting this happen? Play this video.
Hey, Congressman Pat Ryan here. Tonight, as part of my duties as a new member of Congress, I signed this document, an oath for access to classified information, meaning top secret national security information, highly sensitive information. I am outraged that unbelievably now seated member of Congress, George Santos, also now, by just simply signing his name on one document, has access to the same information. This is someone who's blatantly lied about his entire life, his entire biography, his entire record. It is an outrage that he would have access to this information. As an Army intelligence officer, it took me months to be vetted with an extensive background check for access to this sensitive information. Santos must be subjected to that same vetting, especially as someone who's lied about his entire record. That is why I've sent a letter now to the Speaker of the House demanding that Santos not be given access to this information or any committees where he would have access to this information before we can figure out who is he and where do his loyalties lie. Please share this, get the word out about this. George Santos is a grave risk to our national security.
And look, this entire George Santos ordeal is who the MAGA Republicans are in 2023. Everything they say is false. Everything they do is a fraud. It's a trick. It's a scheme. It's some way to deceive the American people to obtain their ends, which is ultimately their bizarre cultist behavior, their obsequiousness to Donald Trump, to Mar-a-Lago, to QAnon, to deep state conspiracy theories, to all of this weird and vile and reprehensible things. But folks, we're calling it out here on the MeidasTouch Network. We don't both sides the issues. We just tell it how it is. This is how it is. I'm Ben Meiselas. Hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers thanks to your support. And in addition, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. You'll love the exclusive content there, but most importantly, help grow this independent media platform. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.